And here we are. Welcome to the program. Charles Moscowitz here. Michael D. Shaw is my guest. And Mike, thanks for joining me today as always.
Always a pleasure.
We there's so much to talk about today in terms of issues. President Trump in Davos is for starters. He is really defining a new civilizational order, not a new world order. In fact, rejection of the old concept of world order, of internationalism, and of transnationalism. And it's a reassertion of what is natural to human society, which is national. Just like we want individual sovereignty over our own lives and our own families, we as nations in the world, all nations, want to maintain national sovereignty by developing governments that operate in our own interests, just like we operate in our own personal interests. And emanating from that come free societies that are in positions where they can become more successful and they can help others. President Trump has asserted the North American continent as an American zone of influence. He has done so with a very strong attempt to take over Greenland. And I understand at this point it might be such that Greenland will remain technically part of the Denmark Empire. They'll have the king as the titular head of state. But the fact is that it will be an American protectorate. We will have full control as a country over all of their natural resources and their military infrastructure. And Trump is pulling a fast one on that one because originally he was offering to buy Greenland for something like $800 billion and to give every Greenlanders $100,000. Now, with this new deal, we get it for free. They get to keep the king, who does nothing for them, and they get nothing. So, to my way of thinking, it accomplishes.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, it would feel, it'd be more satisfying to have him outright take it over.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, Trump is a pragmatist, and he is taking a long view. And the agreement that apparently he's coming up with will put Greenland in the American orbit forever, and it will secure America's military position there. And this is very important because the Arctic is the new sort of great game, and Russia is developing bases up there, and now China's trying to get a handle on it by taking over Canada, which is going to be another contest. I'm sure you probably noticed Mark Carney in Beijing. He practically bowed and kissed the ring of Xi Jinping. And I don't think that that's going to go well for Canada, in that I think most Canadians, especially Western Canadian provinces, they're pro-American. They love America. They are
Yeah.
they are American in almost every sense. And there is a petition now that's getting hundreds of thousands of signatures in Alberta to secede from Canada, and that
Well,
that
they've
would,
been talking about this for 30 years or more,
yeah,
but I think that this Carney situation might just push it over the top.
I think
Um,
he'd be popular there. He is a globalist. He's part of this old order. He was the head of the Bank of England, head of the Bank of international banker. And that is really something that's being challenged, not just by President Trump, but by movements around the world who are asserting sovereignty. And with regard to Canada, I predict that Alberta very well may become a state. We also, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, they also may become states. I don't know about British Columbia. I think they're sort of still pro-British, pro-Canada, but Canada will be left with like a rump state. I mean, obviously, Quebec is going to then sue to become a French republic again. And maybe Ontario will run the rest. It'll be like Serbia still calls itself Yugoslavia. when all that's left is just a rump state, and all of the other nations have gone their own way. Um, I think that it is really the development of a hemispheric civilization with America as the primary influencer. That is happening with Venezuela. It's happening probably with Cuba by the end of the year. They say Trump has said that he hopes that communism collapses. I hope that, if just for symbolic reasons, when that happens, Cuban exiles land at the Bay of Pigs, right? And they move in and take over. Um, and also, there are other developments. Haiti, apparently, there's some negotiation going on. I think that it looks like the United States is reasserting the Monroe Doctrine, but it's really the Donroe Doctrine, because
It is the Don Road Doctrine.
yeah, more than what Monroe had in mind. This is like a real American footprint forever. You know, I mean, the dominoes are falling. Chile has just elected a pro-Trump government. I think that Peru is now pro-Trump. You know, it's all kind of moving in that direction. Maybe the final frontier might be Mexico. I don't know, but what say you, Mike?
Well, I think you're right about all that. This sort of globalist push, I don't think was really ever very popular with the common man. I think there was an elitist push, although that's even backed off quite a bit a few years ago. But the trouble is, it didn't work because it ends up, as you say, being a contradiction. You can't really have a globalist situation and also have independent countries of any repute. The only way it works is if you have these gelded European type states that talk big but haven't done a damn thing since World War II, to be honest.
Right.
Except rely on the U.S. so they could promote their 0.3 per person reproductive rate,
Right.
so they can support a welfare system until that didn't work out. And they had to import 20 million Muslims.
Yeah, they've imported millions of Africans, hoping that maybe they may work in order to preserve the welfare position, when they didn't. They're on welfare. They are this. It's a. I think I mentioned a study that was done actually in Denmark by a team of sociologists who examined Palestinian residents who were settled in Denmark, about 300 families. And they looked at it as a very comprehensive work. It went over, I think, a 30-year period. When they started, something like 80% of them were on welfare. About 75% of them were in various criminal problems. About 60% of them did not learn language. And there were other elements that seemed to mark this community. 30 years later, nothing had changed.
Oh yeah, that was sort of and it's really the wrong word, but there isn't another one I can think of. This sort of dirty little secret. Well, fine. The basic idea of importing people to support your welfare system might make sense, but if most of the importees are themselves on welfare, then why did they do it? And it's like, well, maybe if we don't talk about it, it's going to go away, which seems to be the globalist answer to everything. Well, wait a minute, the COVID vaccines aren't working, but maybe if we don't talk about it, no one will notice.
Well, it brings up a bigger agenda, Mike. I mean, because if they're not talking about it, and now in England, they were not talking about the rape gangs, which is one of the big scandals to hit the British state in modern history. Why aren't they? What do they have in mind, really? I mean, what is this? I mean, in this country, it's the same thing with the Somalis in Minnesota, vein, you have this resistance to discuss what are, by any definition, criminal enterprises.
Well,
I mean,
there's a couple of things going on. All right. One is that, courtesy of your friend Adolf Hitler, racism became the worst sin that can be committed by man. All right.
right.
So then all you have to do is invoke that, and that's supposed to end the conversation. So if you happen to notice that you're importing all these people from third world countries and they're screwing up your country, well, I could shut off debate by saying, well, you're racist. But what's happening now is that's not shutting off the debate anymore. So what the Brits are doing is imprisoning people, evidently, for, quote, hate speech. As long as you make the topic verboten, they think in their deluded minds that the average British guy on the street isn't going to notice it. Of course he notices it.
Well, the thing is that they are using the race card to continue this kind of corruption. It brings a deeper question as to why. But on the surface, we can respond to that by saying, no, this is not race. It's not an issue of race. I mean, it's actually quite insulting and quite defamatory for them to view it in that context. And I'll give you an example. Is it criticizing Italians to talk about the mafia? No. I mean,
well, to be fair, that idea was pushed for a while by people that were actually members of the mafia.
That it was anti-Italian to
criticize.
Yeah. I'm sure it was, and it's being pushed by Somalis too. I've seen it on video. But the point is, it wasn't anti-Italian. You're talking about a criminal syndicate that existed in that community and that happened to be Italian. And we could look at criminal syndicates among Jewish immigrants too, by the way.
And Irish.
And the Irish in Boston. Remember Billy Bulger? I mean, this is, it's nothing to do with that. And the same thing is true with this. It has to do, it's a cultural question. And the fact that they would play that card, it just, we can get into the deeper reasons, the pathology around that. But on the surface, it is wrong, and it's wrong for individuals. You may be following this whole story with Don Lemon or Don Lemon, and he hatched this attack on a church in the middle of services,
claiming that he was only an unbiased journalist. Right.
I'm not sure what that was all about, but what happened is that they literally went in and they interrupted and disrupted a Sunday worship service at a church.
Right.
Was it because there was, this church had said something? I don't know.
No, the cover story was that the pastor of that church apparently had a similar or same name as some ICE official.
Okay.
And they got these lunatics to think that the pastor is this ICE guy.
I see.
And where Don Lemon comes in, it comes back to your racist thing, right?
Yeah.
The guy should not have had a career. He's a moron, but he was blessed by being black and gay, which gave him a job at CNN for many years until even they couldn't stand him anymore.
Right.
And now he has to redefine himself as some sort of on-the-street reporter.
Right, and it has all the earmarkings of a publicity stunt. But what I was thinking is that when he was called out on it, in many cases, his response was, "This is racist and homophobic because I'm black and gay." And then I was thinking about that. I mean, if you think about it, how narcissistic and arrogant is that whole view? Like, anybody gives a damn about whether he's black or gay. We're all supposed to care about him in that way. It's very kind of like, if you think about it, I mean, the way to respond to that is like, why should I give a damn whether you're black and gay?
Well, the thing is, Chuck, people have been so conditioned since, let's face it, World War II.
Yeah.
And this has become, the argument settler of all time. But it finally started to break down the same way that the stranglehold that academia has had on the thought process is going away. But the other thing that ties in with that, this is all a big distraction. As James Woods pointed out a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
the only thing the Democratic Party does now is create these distractions so they would hope that people don't notice that they haven't done a goddamn thing for the American people in like forever. Other than senselessly stoke this outrage.
Yeah, I mean, they're covering up these incredible crimes by any definition. Yeah. And it's continuing to metastasize. And they cannot keep a lid on it. In Maine now, it's finally all coming out. You've got another guy like Shirley, who's in Maine doing the same thing. Even in New York, they're going after the ultra-Orthodox Jews. I'm glad they are. I mean, they've been scamming the system for a long time. They have people who sign up and they declare that they've got somebody who's autistic and that kind of thing. Those people, they should have a clawback and get all of that money back because they're ripping off poor people. They're ripping off people who actually are, deserving.
But when did the ultra-Orthodox really get involved in that? I mean, that hasn't been that well publicized.
No, I think it started it's similar to the Somali phenomena in that they have a lot of clout because they vote as a block.
A voting block. Right.
They have like a Rebbe who goes like this and everybody votes like that. It's like, and so they can get politicians. I mean, that's what I think is going on in Minnesota. The Somalis vote as a block so they can put people like Walsh and Fry in office and they can't, and they're beholden to them. It's very corrupt. And, more specifically with regard to Walsh, 3 days or 4 days after he was picked to run with Kamala Harris, he coughed up $27 million. No one questioned where did he get that kind of money. Right now they're starting to question it. But it's like they're part of this whole corrupt money and vote scam. You now have Ilhan Omar on video bragging about voter harvesting and buying votes from the Somalis. They get cash as they turn in their absentee ballots, which are then stuffed into these boxes. I mean, it's really corrupt. And I think that they just own the politicians. They want to get elected. That's their, they love this kind of power, and plus they're probably making a few bucks off of it.
Well, have you noticed that the clients of these Somalis, case in point, Jacob Fry, Tim Walz, always seem to be these feckless soy boy types, which I guess are picked because they can be dominated somehow.
Look, the Democratic Party and even part of the Rhino Republicans, it's all run by soy boys and Karens.
There you go.
I mean, it's
and watch TikTok disappear now. No, but
still on TikTok. How do you like that?
Okay. No, that's a hell of an observation.
Yeah, but that's going to be. I think that word might trigger my a strike on TikTok. We'll see. I don't know. I'm looking at it now. I'm still there. A lot of people wanting to come into the conversation. I'm just not going to take calls from TikTok, but because those don't go well, frankly. Anyway, back to the subject.
Are they able to post a chat that we can come in?
People send me requests to come on, but my experience with that is that it's not great. I don't want to do that because you get somebody coming on and go, "How are you, sweetie?" I mean, it's not like, they're not really tuned into what we're talking about. With due respect, I'm not saying that everyone listening right now on TikTok is doing that. Most of them are legitimate people, but the people that like to come on, they want to goof me, and I don't want to do
Yeah.
that.
All right.
Okay. Going back to the business of civilizational evolution, if you will. Trump in Davos is really kicking butt. I mean, first of all, you had Howard Lutnick gave a barn burner of a speech, I thought.
Yeah, I'm just going to interrupt. I mean, it's not just Trump.
No.
It's Lutnick and Scott Bessent.
Oh yeah. I mean, he kicked. I mean, they're like, and these guys don't. You know, they can stand up and dish it out. It's. I mean, I can see that it isn't any longer just Trump, which is great because I was you worry that Trump, can he do it all himself? He's got people around him now. RFK Jr. comes to mind. JD Vance is pretty good. He was in Minnesota. He sounded great. I mean, the only weak link I would still argue is Pam Bondi, but whatever. The point is there's enough of them around that they can articulate. I mean, Rubio has turned out to be dynamic. They are on message. They're together. They're working. It's a team. It's probably the best cabinet since Lincoln, if not better.
I think one of the problems that Pam Bondi is having is that the DOJ is just fundamentally corrupt. So it's got to be hard for her to do anything, given the remnants of that department.
And she can't go in and clean house?
I mean, the problem with trying to clean the Augean stable, so to speak, is that it's a cultural thing. Okay, let me give you an analogy. How do you go to the LA Times, New York Times, and suddenly transform them into a non-left-wing organ?
Well,
I submit that even if you fired everybody, there'd be remnants sticking to the walls or whatever. Just the culture is such that it's very difficult to get it done. Now, and the other problem is, if she came in and fired everybody, that would create a controversy in itself.
Right. I'm not saying she has to fire everybody at once. I mean, Trump made this point actually with regard to Venezuela when they were like, well, why are you still working with some of these bad people who were part of the Maduro government? And he pointed out that you can learn from the mistake that was made in Iraq. When we got rid of Saddam Hussein, they fired everybody. They got rid of the whole rotten regime. But what happened is that it left a power vacuum that was filled by ISIS. So you have to kind of work with these people still. They are working. If they don't want to work with Trump, then take them out. But so far, they are working with him, and the change is happening. So as long as it's on course, you have to kind of work with the people in place. That's who's there. You can't.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you tear the whole thing down,
right?
One of the examples in one of the businesses I owned was that let's say there was a cadre of some bad employees.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get rid of this guy and this guy and this guy. But in a small company, every individual has an important role. So now you're saying, fine, we'll get rid of this guy, creates a vacuum. We have to train a new guy. There's going to be a delay in production. So it's very, very traumatic, but you have to make that decision at some point. But even then, if you have a company with 30 people, how devastating is it if you fire 5 at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a rollback. It's almost going to take a generation. And this is why, ideally, it would be great if Trump could serve another term. But I don't think that's going to be in the cards, in which case we're going to need somebody very close, like Trump-like, in there. I don't know who that would be. Actually, I think it's quite interesting that none other than Steve Bannon is thinking of running. I personally think he'd be great. I mean, I really do. I think he would be a great successor to Trump. He knows he's very courageous, very similar in personality. he could do it.
Yeah, he knows all about the system, yet he has not been tainted by it.
No,
And
I think he has.
you can't name, I don't think, in American history, some reformer, quote unquote, who comes in and isn't destroyed and gobbled up by the system. I don't think there's been anyone like that.
No, I mean, look, Bannon went to prison rather than
Yeah.
testify. I mean, he didn't. He will not play ball with this rotten system, and he probably would be a lot tougher than Trump in many ways, because he's much more of a political person than Trump. And I actually would think that he'd make a great successor to Trump. He really
Well,
would.
Trump, remember, comes from, yeah, it's a rough and tumble construction industry, but when you come from the real world, certain things kind of work because they have to work. All right. People have to cooperate. There's no place in the real world, except maybe in gigantic, overly overstuffed companies, for people to just, get a paycheck, do nothing.
Right.
So
incrementally, you're going to have to dismantle these rotten federal judges, and they're not going to go away overnight. It has to slowly, but very steadily, be reversed and be retired through attrition, which is why it's going to take several administrations to do this. And that worries me because the Democrats are going to come back. I mean, I don't know if they're, we say, they've done nothing. I mean, Woods is correct that they've not contributed anything, but I don't know. I fear that they might pull something. They're not going out. They're not going to go down.
The only thing that's holding them together are these generational idiots that, because great grandpa was a Democrat, we just have to support this party. Now that is starting to fall off a little bit, but yet you have to admit that you can put up a complete moron like a Kamala Harris and a Tim Walz, who in both cases made the classical mistake, I believe. We used to be called the Peter Principle, when they went beyond their area of competence. Okay, Harris could get away with being a senator in California. Nobody knows what senators do. Nobody cares, really. They're not in any kind of leadership position. But once she became a presidential candidate, you had to ask yourself, wait a minute, she can't even form a sentence. She doesn't know anything. And, jokes about Willie Brown aside and the horizontal favors or whatever. All right, she got to a certain point, but she just should have stopped. Just like Joe Biden should have stopped. Hey, I was able to be this corrupt POS for my whole career. Maybe now it's time to cash out and enjoy being on Rehoboth Beach. But he didn't do it, So, and Timmy Walz somehow got elected governor of Minnesota. But, there's a lot of crummy governors in the United States. In fact, I would argue most of them are crummy. Can you name a good governor of any state?
Right now, probably not.
There's 50 states, Chuck, and you're hard pressed to name one good governor.
DeSantis is okay in Florida, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that
Abbott. That's what I think of.
No, I mean Abbott's okay in Texas, although he's kind of a little wishy-washy in many ways. But there's the warning. Okay. Thank you.
What did you say?
Was it my comment about Abbott? I don't know. Oh well.
Okay, but I get, not to belabor this, but you were hard pressed to name 2 good governors out of 50. All right. Now, some of it is you don't know all 50 governors, even you. All right. But apparently it's relatively easy to become a governor of a state. because there just isn't the media attention. But
Right.
once you get above that, yeah, the spotlight is on. And who are the Democrats going to put up next? Josh Shapiro?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. They're all like, I mean, who are they? I mean, look, they'll put up now that TikTok's gone. We can talk about this.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll do what they did with Biden in 2020. You know, they don't care. They'll keep him in the basement, and they'll steal the election. You know, so I don't think that it really even mattered. Obviously, in that case, Trump won by a landslide in 2020. You know, he was beating, and all of a sudden, all the states.
3 o'clock in the morning, turned around. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was actually. I mean, everyone in the country saw it with their own eyes. It was almost literally at the same moment, like a little, maybe 3 or 4 minutes after 11 p.m. Like some kind of an algorithm went off, where suddenly all of the battleground states and a couple of other states stopped counting, just like that, bing, and Trump was ahead in all of them, and probably would have continued growing had they can. You know, he was about to take a landslide, and when everything it was like somebody pulled a plug out, just like they just did to me on TikTok. You know, bing, all of a sudden they yanked the plug out of the wall. I remember even like Rachel Maddow had a moment of honesty when she's like scratching her head, like, what happened? Atlanta, they're not counting? You know, and then all of a sudden somebody talked to her, you know, in the ear, like, shut up, or something. And then she got on the program.
Right.
But the whole country saw that. And that's nothing compared to what they might do next time. I mean, look, I think that in 2024, Trump was totally on the ground and knew and expected this to happen. You had people, lawyers, teams of lawyers in every state ready to take calls and taking calls from whistleblowers dropping a dime on stuff happening. Everybody was watching, and they really couldn't do it again for that reason. You know, you couldn't have this business with you know, people going out and harvesting votes in Michigan and in Wisconsin at nursing homes and filling out these tens of thousands of ballots, or Stacey Abrams filling out ballots for homeless people and all these phony addresses. I don't think they could do that again. That was like a one-time thing. Not to mention,
and the other thing is they don't have the judicial system locked up anymore.
right?
It was good as a one-time situation where, you know, the judges didn't want to get involved. Well, we don't want to be involved in elections and blah, blah, blah. But these tricks aren't going to work anymore because people don't buy the BS. All right. To be honest, I don't know why they ever did. The Kennedy-Nixon election was controversial as hell.
Right, for sure.
But, you know, the rule of thumb, wow, you must accept a great sacred election system. And that's that. That's how Lyndon Johnson got into Congress in the first place.
Exactly.
He was absolutely corrupt.
Yeah. Even his biographer.
How dare you accuse me, et cetera, et cetera. So the thing is, people have gotten a bit smarter, okay? There's always going to be, as you call it, the 25% useful idiots. They're going to go along with it. But most people don't anymore. That's why there is, as you may know.
Yeah, but they might still try to figure out a way to ante. I don't know. I mean, they're not going to sit back. You know, I think that one of the things that might come out of the seizure of Maduro and the opening up of Venezuela is the stuff that Sidney Powell was talking about with regard to Dominion and Smartmatic. See, I can talk about this now because TikTok is off.
Oh, good.
Right? I mean, I don't think Rumble cares.
No.
But, you know, this is, you know, I mean, the voting machines with their algorithms and there's stop gaps. I mean, it works like the stock market. If you buy stock, you can order like a stopgap if you're like picking stocks yourself, in that you could put in an electronic piece like a measure by which if the stock drops below a certain value, it
It'll
automatically
sell.
it automatically sells. Or if it goes up a certain value, it may automatically sell as well. Um, but the thing is that that's how the machines worked, and that's what Sidney Powell was saying. She was like, they average them out, and there's a stop measure in there that will the machine will stop functioning if it goes above or below a certain level, which is obviously what happened, in my opinion. That's why they were able to shut down simultaneously the machines. And by the way, this used to be a big issue for the left before that election. Elizabeth Warren, my own senator, authored what was called the PAVE Act, which would have abolished uh, all election machines. She wanted them to all be done by hand. She referred to the machines as corrupt, as controlled by the Republicans, right wing control, that it was controlled by the millionaires and the billionaires, that all that rhetoric. And that was backed by Senators Kamala Harris, who was on record in Washington as a senator saying that she had personally witnessed a machine change a vote. And Senator Klobuchar and Booker, and they all were, on this until 2020, when all of a sudden
Until they weren't, yeah.
everything stopped on that one, and now they don't talk about it. I remember the radio host. I should have him on. I mean, what's Tom Hartman, very left-wing guy. I don't know do you know who he is?
I've heard the name, but that's about it.
He's been around forever. He actually had me on occasionally until he had to tell me privately that he couldn't have me on anymore because he was getting threats and hate mail, and his sponsors were going to drop him. So he couldn't have anybody on other than people that agreed with him. Anyway, he spent month after month after month talking about how the machines are stealing elections and how this is a right-wing conspiracy and these conservative right-wing groups are running the machines and blah, blah, blah. He won't talk about that now. You cannot. I've contacted him. He will not discuss that now. It took a complete about face, and yet Trump is still talking about it. He mentioned it in Davos, and he's right. We have to get to the bottom of that, or we're never going to have a free election. And it's really the very core of this whole rot. That election has to be exposed. I still believe that. I mean, it's not a diversion. I know there are other things that we should move on and focus on, and they're great. But that issue, I cannot let that go.
Well, you're right. They did a good job of trying to suppress it at the time. Every major media organization was
in on it.
At best, Fox would put on Sidney Powell, for ratings, but they didn't support her.
Oh, they were among the worst. Aaron Michelin, I believe his name. He was he called the night of the election. They were worse than Rachel Maddow. I mean, he called Arizona before the polls closed.
Yeah.
For Biden, and he had no evidence of that. This was the same trick that Dan Rather did in 1990, except 10 times worse and much more so. I mean, Dan Rather, that's how they get the term red state, blue state. He was standing there and saying, Florida has voted for Gore, and he showed Florida blue. And he had no evidence whatsoever that not only did he have no evidence, but the panhandle part of the state hadn't even, the polls hadn't even closed yet. And when people saw that, they decided not to vote. It was talk about voter suppression.
Yeah. Now, that guy, we could do a whole show on Dan Rather.
Oh yeah, I mean, And a lot of people have done much worse. And I mean, Rather was finally fired, but now it's like, yeah, who cares? I mean, they just keep going and lying. There's another hoax now. Drudge Report it's almost like every week. ICE sent in a young boy to lure his father and mother, illegal aliens, out of the house. Big front page story, complete hoax.
Yeah.
The fact is the father had abandoned him. And ICE, and if anything, they'd rescued him. I mean, the parents were like probably drug dealing terrorists. They don't mention that. But, they get away with it. And then there's a big story and there's a big splash. And the next day it goes down the memory hole.
Well, I mean, the good news, though, is that, and we've talked about this a lot, the major media is failing badly. Okay. There are dozens and dozens of YouTube content creators that I don't really want to call influencers who get 10 times the viewership of these media shows.
Oh, yeah. No question. I mean,
so it's going away, and I think the proof of the pudding, yeah, fine. They put Barry Weiss in charge at CBS News. They come up with some guy that no one's ever heard of to be the evening news anchor.
Right.
I can't remember his name. No one has ever heard of him. What's the point? So you're going to get what, 100,000 viewers? People don't care. People want news as it happens. They don't want appointment television at 6 p.m. to watch the news. You look on your phone, you look on your computer whenever you want.
No, I mean, it's the same aging crowd that goes to the No Kings rallies. They're just, this is their last hurrah. They hate Trump. And
but they can't articulate why, but it doesn't matter.
No, I mean, and their numbers are dwindling very quickly. Just trying to do a little experiment here. No, maybe not. Anyways, but to bring things back, Trump is reordering the entire universe. It's incredible. The European countries, they can't continue this fraud. I don't see how they can keep this up, in that they are extremely unpopular. And you've got Nigel Farage, who looks like he's going to prevail in Britain. You've got the AfD in Germany. They're Nazis. Bullcrap. They're if anything, I think that one of the things that really got them in trouble and really PO'd the establishment is that when the leader of that party, who by the way happens to be a lesbian, not that it matters, was asked about the charge of Nazism, and she said, "No, actually, we generally view Nazism as left wing." And
of course,
because it is. But the point is that probably bothered them more than anything.
Yeah, well, that's one of their shibboleths, right?
Yeah.
Since Uncle Joe Stalin said that the Nazis are right wing, we have to believe it. I guess.
Well, that's right, and that he put out that party line after Hitler double-crossed him at Operation Barbarossa. All of a sudden he took a 180-degree shift. Now the Nazis are right wing. Now the Nazis are fascists, right? And they're bad, and and all of that. When in fact they were very close before that. I mean, it was the two socialist behemoths.
How come you and I are the only people in the world that notice that?
Because it's been dropped down the proverbial memory hole at this time. I mean, any history of World War II, they don't mention this. They don't mention the fact that in the first 2 years of World War II, Hitler and Stalin were two peas in a pod. They had signed a secret agreement as part of the Hitler-Stalin Pact, which divvied up Europe between the two. And they meant it. Hitler got half of Poland, Stalin got the other half. Hitler got the Balkans, Stalin got the Baltics. I mean, literally, they just said, you take this piece, I'll take that piece. And then they proceeded to wolf it all down. I mean, this is what happened. I mean, even at the time, I mean, a lot of Americans knew this, not just Charles Lindbergh either. Truman, he was a senator at the time. He said, "Hey, I hope the two of them just kill each other and we be done with them. They're the same thing." I mean, even there was a cartoon that was drawn by Dr. Seuss showing this. Hitler and Stalin. All of it disappeared after the Operation Barbarossa. Stalin had that kind of influence where he could make something go away. And now you have, in this day and age, Trump seems like he's on the verge of developing some kind of a peace treaty between Russia and Ukraine. I don't know. He met with Zelensky, and he's got um, Witkoff and I think Kushner in Moscow meeting with Putin, and it looks like they're going to have an agreement. Who knows? I mean, Trump he really nails it. He's like, look, on a one day, Zelensky's on board, and then Putin attacks his house. The next day, Putin's on board, and Zelensky throws a missile. He goes, if they don't come up with an agreement, all they're going to do is continue to kill their young people year after year, and they're just stupid. It's just they're at a stalemate. They're not going to. No one's going to budge, and it's just going to go on. They're not going to get World War III, which is what what's her name? All the globalists wanted, who got this war. Victoria Nuland and all those people. They were hoping for another big war, and it's not going to happen. Not with Trump in office. It's going to just continue on dragging along as a meat grinder, and it's sad. It's futile. So I think they are going to come up with an agreement, and I think they will in Israel too. It looks like there are countries that are going to forcibly disarm Hamas. Because they want to get a piece of Israel, frankly. Israel is not necessarily getting what they had wanted, which is a greater Israel. But that's too bad. They'll have peace there. And I think Iran looks like it's teetering on the verge of collapse. Things are moving in the right direction in the world. There are nationalist movements that are asserting themselves against these radicalized internationalists and these insane governments like the one in Iran, which is trying to conquer, the Middle East. They've been put back, So in generally, I mean, I'm optimistic. Now I can see that the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell is going to be finishing up in May. And at that time, Trump is going to appoint someone who is going to lower interest rates. This is what we need to have happen. And there's going to be a boom, I would think. I mean, there's the people in the know are saying to invest in rare earth metals, in gold and silver, which is booming, in various like manufacturing and mining stock. A lot of the people in the know are now investing in that, including some of the big pharma companies, because they can see that the country is really moving up in the world. I mean, this is, the deals that Trump made to get companies to invest in this country are going to start to show results this year. And I think that we're going to see, I mean, I don't see how the Democrats certainly can refute that.
Well, I mean, they're trying to. If you look at a lot of these left wingers, they came out in support of Maduro.
Oh yeah, and that's going to win elections for them. I mean, the entire Latin American world is celebrating on the streets over this. I mean, and they're going to lose ground among American Hispanics. That was supposed to be their people. I mean, are they that crazy? What do they think?
I think the trouble is that if the only playbook you have was written 50 years ago or more, and that's all you use, you're going to keep, using that.
It's insane. It work for them. And meanwhile, you've got your Governor Newsom. he's in Davos making a complete ass of himself. What is that all about? And Besant really called him out. I mean, he
Yeah.
did. He said he's there. He's here with his sugar daddy, Soros' son. That's pretty intense. I mean, woo. What's he doing there? What is that all about?
He's acting like he's the presidential candidate, um, which seems odd in that, say what you want, but he hasn't done anything good for California. Other than being the nephew of Nancy Pelosi, what else is on his resume? Okay. The hair gel is only going to go so far.
Right. I mean, do you think so? You don't think he has any traction?
There are people that would like for him to have traction. If he's popular anywhere, it's in some portions of California. But if he had been a good governor, that'd been one thing. You know, Reagan didn't become a presidential candidate because of hair gel,
right,
in California. All right. He had a great record as the governor of the largest state. All right. The fact that Newsom is the governor of the largest state, that in itself is no accomplishment.
But yet the Californians don't seem to care. I mean, for example, in 2019, the state of California spent $24 billion on the homeless problem.
Right.
Who got that money? What did they do? They built a house somewhere? I mean, it's as bad as ever, isn't it?
There's some, you have people that are SJWs that wouldn't want to be within 10 miles of a homeless person. But if they can make themselves feel better by the fact that X amount of tax revenue is going into some rabbit hole, that's why most liberals are idiots, because they've never really thought any of this through beyond, as we keep pointing out, the Model UN and Ethel Rosenberg. That's it.
Right.
Okay. What do you have to show for it? Other than it makes you, as some Beverly Hills housewife, feel good that you did something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, they took a lot of checks over the years.
Yeah.
As we talked about, to wrap it up, the war on poverty was $80 trillion, trillion with a T.
Yeah.
I mean, the most conservative estimate I've seen, and I've looked into this, is a 35 trillion.
Right.
This created an entire class of people who are, in the field I'm studying, sociology, and in the various departments at universities and think tanks and nonprofits, and a lot of it has gone overseas to support color revolutions. A lot of people have gotten fat and rich from this money. It's created a whole credentialed class, and really nothing for poverty at all. And
well, that's it. Poverty isn't the only thing. I mean, back in the day, the biggest contract that was ever received on the whole UCLA campus was Dietl's multi-level AIDS study. Okay, what it did was gather data about AIDS in various countries. I mean, maybe that's useful information, but was it really $25 million contract?
It's like they're going to basically.
Did he cure anybody of AIDS?
No, I mean it's the same phenomenon. I mean, I noticed that, like, to wrap it up, in my sociology class, we had to see this movie about racism, and they interviewed people at a high school, and they talked about this high school and how there's racism, and we're going to talk about racism. The whole movie, we're going to talk about racism. We need to talk.
Yeah.
And all they did was talk about talking about it. Nobody actually said anything. There was no talk about, look, this is what's going on here, and here's what we can do about it. It's all this kind of like shibboleth. I mean, it's this kind of web of a dull web of like people talking about, and everybody feels like they've done something, and they all feel good about, and they've said nothing. I mean, it's just, there's nothing actually accomplished, and that's what they're doing, and that's what they've been doing all along, and that's what's worked for them. Because, I mean, this is why this whole scandal with the Somalis is just the tip of the iceberg. And I hope that we can have people in positions of influence who can articulate what's really underneath all of this entire rotten transfer of wealth to these credentialed nothings, these people who just, I don't know how they live with themselves. Anyway,
That's an easy way to make money.
yeah, and by the way, I mean, somebody's knocking on your door and handing out money. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't deny. Anyone handing me money, I take the money. I mean, I guess no one's doing that. I've never had that, but I'm just saying. I mean, I can understand it. The problem is the system itself that's offering this money. But look, I mean, when I every day is, as I've said, it's like Christmas morning. You're waiting for the next exciting thing to happen, with also a sense of fear that the enemy that we're up against, and that President Trump's up against, and the MAGA movement's up against. These people play for keeps. They are violent. They will do anything. They're crazy. And did you see any of the hearings with Jack Smith?
Oh yeah.
I mean, talk about real awful. I mean, skunks. And this guy Brandon Gill, what a great congressman he is. He really gets up there. I really like watching him. He takes him apart. It's like, and then he says something, and then Smith is like, well, I don't know. He goes, well, according to this, and I have it here, and it says blah, blah. He does his homework. He's got it all right there. Probably got Smith to perjure himself several times. And I mean, I don't think he looks good. And I don't think that's working. If they think that's going to be a winner for them, that doesn't work. Anyways, so what do you have?
See how all that turns out.
I guess. What do you have coming up on the Substack?
Well, I got a couple of ideas in the hopper. But the danger is that you fall back on the old stuff, right? I think we've done the professional protester thing to death. We've talked about the dyed-in-the-wool liberal thing to death. So
keep talking. I mean, we have to follow it and keep at it, like a dog chasing a meat truck.
Yeah.
You have to kind of stay on that. Don't worry about repetition is good. You need to continue to reinforce it and reach out and reach people and think about it anew.
The problem though, if you do something like that, you get the impression that you're writing the same column every week. And
yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I mean, a lot of my books, I get into certain issues that I've gotten into before, but you bring something new to it.
Yeah.
You have new experience, new insight. There are new things going on in the world that have changed. And also, as someone who, usually, I mean, generally conservatives in general, they're open to new ideas, and they grow. They're not locked like the left. The situations do change, society does change, and you kind of learn, and you keep, you evolve as an intellect. So, that's something that's the hallmark, I think, of an intelligent person. You have some basic and fundamental bedrock principles that you fall back on, but you then kind of create from that. It's sort of, these are abstract principles. You can make something out of it and make it relate to the world today. That's what the Talmud was all about, actually. Anyway.
All right.
So upward and onward.
We continue on.
Indeed.
See you, same time, same station.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks a lot. All right, Mike.